English translation 534th Contact Tuesday, the 24th of January 2012, 23:02 hours.
Hello, Ptah, dear friend. You must have enjoyed telephoning like Florina and Enjana, because they also discovered that you can reach me by phone in the kitchen when I am talking to someone over there.
Yes, that is so. You were so engrossed in the conversation with Hartmut that it was fun for me to draw your attention to the fact that I was waiting for you here.
But if I am going to take the call myself, then you do not have to end it.
It could also be someone else, but greetings, dear friend.
Yes, greetings also, but you can still interrupt the call if I do not answer the phone. This time I got Bernadette, Silvano, and Madeline out of bed and asked them if they had called before I realized that the internal call was coming from my office again. Of course, I do not mind if you call me from here by telephone, but it would be good if you would also get in touch with me. On the other hand, I now know what it means when an internal phone call comes in and the call is disconnected again.
Then it is also all right.
Whatever you say. But why did you come here today? Because I thought that you would not come back until the next correction work.
That is correct. But since I am pursuing the matter of the perfidious and slanderous attack against you, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that this matter is to be continued in the same sense. Involved in these machinations are also, and furthermore, these facts have to be mentioned.
I have already done these ads, dear friend, as I told you last November. I have also now brought in a lawyer, because I do not think I have any other choice. But
We actually still have to talk about that because...
Good, then we want to postpone this, but to a private conversation.
Then you still have questions?
Yes, I recently saw another TV program about Santorini and the Aegean Sea, what happened there in earlier times. And as I know, the Aegean is one of the most dangerous areas on Earth in terms of volcanic activity under the sea, along with the Yellowstone caldera, the Eifel region, Iceland and Hawaii, etc. The Aegean region also includes Santorini, where the Santorini volcano blew up some 3,500 years ago. And it is precisely for this reason that I would like to ask whether there is a danger in the future that the activity of the Santorini volcano, which is still deep underground, will once again become outwardly active? The same question also applies to Vesuvius.
This is undoubtedly the case for both, although in extreme cases the consequences will be monstrous.
I can imagine. But another question. Scientists generally claim that the human being has its origin in Africa. But your father Svath told me something else, namely that the real origin is in the north of Africa. He also took me to a place in Germany, whose name I have forgotten, where he dug up a fossil and explained to me the pre-human fossils, respectively the pre-human characteristics, and also said that it was the actual forerunner of the human being, which had started to develop 48 million years ago. Svath showed me on the fossil that the creature already had 5 fingers, respectively thumbs and fingers, and also 5 toes and a set of teeth on its hands, which were very similar to those of the human being of today. Through his apparatus, Svath was also able to make the creature holographically visible to me, so that I could see it in its full size of about 60 centimeters and in its real form. I think that what Svath said is more likely to be true than the claims of the earthly scientists.
What my father explained is correct. The real origin of development of Earth humans was not in the south of the Earth, but in the north of Africa. This development began 48 million years ago when the early beings split up into precursors of the human being and apes. Just as the ape creatures lived on trees at that time and still do so today, so did the early beings from which human beings ultimately evolved live on trees at that time and until a few million years ago. And the very well-preserved fossil that my father uncovered in an open-cast mine in the so-called Messel pit in Hesse is around 47 million years old. It has been in our possession ever since. And it is clear from it that the primordial beginning of the formation of the early life form, from which Earth humans ultimately emerged, was not in the African South, but in the north of Africa. What my father has explained to you is correct, which is also proven by our research. Even before his statement, which took us back to the time when the division of the early beings 48 million years ago into a form of human and an ape-like line took place.
Svath said that due to climate, land and continental changes, the early beings spread from the north of Africa far over the earth. Also to the African south, east, and west, where the first different primeval human species developed about 8 to 12 million years ago.
This occurred in the north of Africa, where today are Egypt, Malta, and Sicily, because that is where the area of today's Messel pit in Germany was located at that time. This was the actual origin of the early beings from which the primeval human form as mammals developed.
Unfortunately, no fossils have yet been found in this respect. I mean in relation to life forms that would already be human, or at least human-like. However, it is likely that there are such fossils that just need to be found.
That is undeniable.
Then the only question is when or if such fossils will be found at all. Then now another question that relates to photons. You said the following at the 466th official contact conversation on the 21st of June 2008.
The photons do not have any weight, but the mass zero, as it is also the case with regard to time radiation, because they are both pure energy without any medium of their own, which is why they behave neutrally against any kind of matter and are repelled by gravity.
Here is the further question. Photons are light particles, but they are weightless. But I do not understand how it is possible to move or stop things by a very strongly bundled light, to melt metal with a laser beam, and even to propel flying objects in space. Even if the weight and mass are zero and practically cannot be determined, I think that somehow something must be present that can produce the effects in the above-mentioned respect. Perhaps a mass of light and a weight of light or something like that. But everything is so small and weightless that a single photon, for example, cannot be measured in any weight and mass.
What you say is correct, of course. Explained in a simple and easy-to-understand way is the following to say about it. Every single photon is not measurable in relation to its weight and mass, at least not with earthly apparatuses. Therefore, mass and weight always result in zero. But if the photons are bundled millions of times, like with spotlights or especially with lasers or photon engines, then in their constant movement at the speed of light, a so-called moving mass becomes visible, which can be registered and also measured in terms of weight. However, about 400 million photons together make up such a tiny mass, which contains less than the smallest atomic nucleus component. Photons appearing in unimaginably enormous masses, however, which without exception are always in motion at the speed of light, and as these are generated by suns and all other photon-producing structures in the universe and are hurled out into space, the masses in motion increase to enormous weights, which can only be calculated in millions of tons.
And this, although the individual photon is weightless and massless, so to speak, but in this respect can only be measured in a very large mass. Really phenomenal.
If by that you mean epistemological, then that is indeed the case.
This is what I mean by really phenomenal. Unfortunately, this word is often misunderstood. Actually, it is used to describe something as unusual, mysterious, astonishing, unparalleled, etc. For me, however, I have learned from Svath to use and understand the term phenomenal, especially also as insightful and unique. But this is actually not common with Earthlings in this form.
This is known to me, that is why I asked you about your understanding in this respect. But what I want to ask, how far is Piero's work with the photo book? Our peoples are very interested in it, because we have already announced that we will be able to make the work available to interested parties through our information channels around the end or middle of next year.
Oh, I mean that Piero has not yet started to do that. But he said some time ago that he would take enough time for it in the spring, and if possible finish it this year or by the middle of next year at the latest.
I remember that because you told me that after the work with the articles was finished.
I actually did that according to Piero's statement, I know. But as far as I know, he has not yet started this work and will not start it until spring. At least that's what he said, which I am sure he will also do then.
If that is what he said, then I do not want to doubt it. By the way, the article book has been very well received by many of our interested parties, who also thank you for Piero's work, so please let him know. It is a valuable contemporary document for all of us, which we would not want to miss anymore. So I will rely on Piero's word.
You certainly can. And besides that, the book with the newspaper clippings is a valuable contemporary document for us too, and it is also of great interest to our readers.
Then let us turn now to the private things we still have to discuss if you have no more questions.
At the moment, there is nothing more to do.
Well, then the following. Then there is only this to say about it.
I think that is all that can be discussed for the time being.
I also think so. Then I want to leave again now. But I will not come to the next visit on the 3rd of February, but only on Saturday, the 4th of February, because we still have to do the correction work together with Bernadette. Until then, goodbye, Edward.
See you. Take care, Ptah, my friend.